Care who you are and where you're at in life, but you need somebody in your corner. If you're a top entrepreneur, that executive, or even a stay-at-home mom, you need somebody that can be there for you. Which, by the way, the stay-at-home mom probably has the hardest job. And sometimes that person can come in a form of a friend, a mentor, or even a coach. Now, I've had a coach for years now, and it's the best decision I've ever had. And actually, today, I want to introduce you to my coach, and we're going to talk about a lot of different topics. So stay tuned. But my coach is online right now, and Donna Takini is my coach. And how are you doing today, Donna?
I'm great, Alex. Thanks for having me today. I really appreciate it. I love our time together.
Absolutely. Now, we've been working together quite a while, so I kind of know your story and where you've come from. But for those of you that are out there that don't know Donna's story, how about we just start with that? What is your story? What made you into a coach? Where have you come from? Just give a overall arching view of what you've done in your life.
Yeah, okay, Alex, that's a great, very large question, and I'll try to be concise yet capture the key points. So my background originally is in education. Both of my parents rather were teachers, so I really value education. I'm a book nerd, love to read, all of the good stuff. I began my journey as actually a high school English teacher, and I taught in a very rough school for the beginning, and then taught in a very country type school and loved it. But I would say the thing that changed my life the most is when my firstborn son joined us here, and he is deaf. And so that really changed the trajectory of my life on so many levels. But from a career standpoint and pushing me towards coaching, what I knew is that I couldn't be in a classroom helping other people's children when maybe mine needed help. And I just didn't have that answer. So fast forward, I'm helping him. I get my real estate license. I am always looking for that next step, loving what I'm doing, and came across a franchise that was new to Iowa. Ultimately, I thought, you know what, this is a great franchise. I think we need to have this as an opportunity. It was scary to me, made no sense in the timing of my life. I had a 7 and a 5-year-old, and I was going through a divorce, all the challenges coming at me. But hey, let's launch a company. And that's what I
Big
did.
step.
It was me. Another person was very instrumental in the process, and I launched this franchise. It was the first in the state of Iowa. That was back in 2010, and for gosh, 2 years now. I think it'll be 2 years in September is when I did sell that company. But ultimately, during that process, it grew to just over 120 associates at one point. Um, and I realized that as it got bigger, I was losing that connectivity with the people that I really cared about. And I wanted to shift into my next step. I worked on earning my coaching certification. I thought this would be a great idea to empower me to help people on a very high level. So I earned that certification in a plan to exit. I launched the productivity coaching, relaunched, I should say, the productivity coaching division within this franchise. And I worked with new associates, mega agents, people building teams on a variety of topics. Well, as you can imagine, you and I built that connection, I did with others as well, kind of turned into, hey, I've got a friend who's an attorney. I've got a physical therapist. My husband owns a construction company, and it just turned into me working with people in all different industries. And I launched my second company, Atra. Real quick on that, Atra comes from the Italian word attraversiamo. Best way I can describe what I do is that word means in Italian to be on one side of the street and cross over to the other. And so figuratively, I work with clients wherever they are on one side of the street when they want to get to the other, and I help them get there. And I'm so grateful for what I get to do. I'm like ending my day feeling honored that people trust me in that journey, and humbled as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And the way you describe it, it seems like it was all flawless. There was no problems the whole time. And from our conversations, I know that's not completely true. You want to expand on maybe some of the hiccups that you saw during
Um,
that journey and, different things that happened?
oh my gosh. Listen, I am talented at failing. Let me tell you that. And I believe that as challenging as those failures were at the time, it's what allows me to be a really effective coach, come from a very compassionate, empathetic place. And I really try to show up authentic with my clients, meaning I'm in the boat with them, right? I'm just kind
Mhm.
of offering a different perspective. So, but I would say if I had to characterize two of my biggest challenges, one would be internal. For all intents and purposes, grew up as a person, as a leader, as a business person, while going on this journey. I mean, we're talking about 2010. Well, we won't say exactly how much younger in terms of like where I was in my age, but I was in my young 30s, and I didn't have a lot of experiences. I had people questioning me, doubting me, referring to me as that girl from Geneseo, and who does she think she is? And I don't have my MBA. I hadn't established myself as a mega agent in the Quad Cities. I actually began my career in Champaign, Illinois. And, logically, if you put it out on the paper, maybe people should have doubted me. But the piece of the puzzle is that I know is the grit, the resolve, the focus, the determination, the willingness to stand back up is what nobody knows about me other than myself and people as they get to know me.
Yeah.
So I had to work through those blocks. I mean, there was a lot of external signals telling me I wasn't worth it. I wasn't the right choice. This is hard. This is challenging. Who do you think you are? So I was really working through that. Um, my coach, by the way, we all have coaches if we're smart, right? In my
Yeah.
opinion, you should always be looking to improve. My coach talks about we're riding uphill on a bicycle right now, and you need to continue pedaling. And that's what I would do is pedal even when I was exhausted. And the second challenge, because, and I don't want to get into specifics here necessarily, but it was finding the right people to be on this journey with, whether that was personally or professionally, understanding how to understand people and how to communicate with them in a way that they can hear it and they can move forward as they need to move forward. And I don't mean as a coach, but I mean in business actually. And there were some hard relationships and some challenges and some disappointments. And some of that I needed to own, and others I just needed to maybe be aware and see it a little sooner. So that created a lot of pivoting. And ultimately, when you're an entrepreneur, and for a majority of this time, I owned 89% of this franchise. If somebody decides to shift their game plan, their journey in life, and they don't want to work for you or with you anymore, it comes back to you. You need to be able to pick up pieces that you're not used to carrying. And sometimes that's a lot. And especially during that time, I was a mom of two children. I mean, I still am a mom of two children, but they're adults now. So it's a
Yeah.
little bit different. And I know you in your intro mentioned the stay-at-home moms. Like it's a thing, whether you're working or you're staying at home, those kids, and whether you're a mom or a dad, they require time and attention, and you don't get that time back. So how do you kind of balance all of that?
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's really important, I think, to see that the struggles happen because, like I said, from the outside, it looks like everything went very smoothly, where it really didn't. And when you're talking about, being a coach, I think it's super important to have those experiences because the people you're coaching are going to have those experiences. And you can talk from a place of, I've been there, I know what it's like. And I think that's super important. And you've touched on this a little bit, but what is the importance of having a coach? You can be the greatest athlete, say LeBron James, he's one of the greatest athletes out there of all time, but he still has a coach. So what is the importance of having that coach and what's the benefit, I guess, is a good question for that.
Yeah, great question, Alex. And like I said, I fully believe in coaching myself. I think the misnomer out there is that you get a coach when there's a problem and you're struggling. And I would, from my perspective, that's actually the opposite way to look at having a coach. And when you have a problem, sure, you can get support. I think that's fine. But really, the best way in my mind to look at coaching and when to hire a coach is to say, I'm ready to up level. I'm ready to take that next step. And I'd like to partner with somebody who holds me accountable from an objective standpoint. So, you and I've worked together. A lot of phrases that you've heard me say is, can I be the mirror right now for you? Are you open to another way of looking at that? Can we shift the perspective just a little bit here? Because we're so in our stuff, we don't see it, and I think that um, when we are just looking at it another way, I like to say it is from our stripe of the beach ball, it's a very limited perspective. And if you can get with somebody who can say, okay, but what about this stripe and this stripe and this stripe, and offer that perspective shift, it's really quite powerful. And
Yeah.
if people listen, if people are being honest with you, we all have doubts. We have times we want to throw it up our hands and say, what in the heck did I think I was doing? And I feel having that person who's your confidant, we do owe our clients fiduciary responsibility, that you can just say to that person, I'm doubting myself right now, or this is a challenge I don't know how to overcome. What are your thoughts? And you can trust that they're going to give you a very candid response and help you think through action items. That's really powerful. In
Yeah, I
fact,
think that
I'll share
is.
with you. Sorry, Alex. I'll share with you just this week. I had to reach out to my coach on an unscheduled time. I'm always saying to you, hey, you can reach me in between text, email, whatever. I'm here for you. Things pop up. Hey, I had to do that. I had a big addition into my life, from a work perspective. And I was overwhelmed. And I just reached out to her and I said, hey, this is what I'm feeling. This is what's happening. I need a check from you. Like, check me on this, and
Yeah.
she did. It was fantastic.
Oh yeah. And that call happens with us all the time. And I think you really hit a couple really key points that you kind of glazed over a little bit. And that is, you know, you can be doing all this work all the time, but without somebody else's perspective, you have blind spots that you don't even realize that you have. And I think that's super critical when talking to somebody. But also the piece that you touched on at the end there is that sometimes you just need a sounding board. Like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. What's your thoughts on that? I think that is so crucial when you're having that coach. And I think a lot of people think of having a coach as more of a accountability partner, which there's pieces of that, but I think a coach is more of, what am I missing? How can I, if I did this, what do you think that would do? The accountability part obviously is important, but to get a natural coach, I think you should be looking more at the blind spots and that sounding board. Is that kind of what you think as well?
Yeah, I think that that's a really high level coach, and you have a deep relationship when you're in a relationship like that with your coach. I think oftentimes it starts with things like, I have this idea in my head and I want to bring it into the world. How do I do that? And so then it can really start from breaking it down, mapping it out, just knowing that you're going to be on a call with somebody that next week that you respect and is going to say, hey, how did that go for you? Did something change? Let's talk it through. That's where it usually starts. But you're right. As you deepen that relationship and that trust builds, it becomes what you're describing, which is like, hey, Alex, I'm seeing this. Would you like to hear more about that? Or could this be a pattern? Could we explore it? And you earn that right in that relationship. So yeah, I think that's the sweet spot if you can get there.
Yeah, I think it's super important to have that in your life, no matter where you're at on skill level or business or life in general. I think that's important to have. Absolutely. Now, changing subjects a little bit, one of the things that we've talked about in the past, and I know you're pretty passionate about, is personality types and specifically DISC. You want to expand on what DISC is and what the personality types are and how you can actually utilize that sort of stuff in life and in business.
Yeah, you're right. I am really passionate about it. So DISC looks at natural and adapted behavioral tendencies and I'll just back it up and tell you why am I passionate about it. When I was launching my franchise back in 2000 and probably 8 or 9, when it was first an idea in my head, one of the pieces they required us to take is this DISC assessment. And DISC is DISC. It stands for 4 different behavioral styles. And in doing so, I was a little skeptical. I was taking this assessment. I'm like, all right, seriously? You're going to figure out who I am from these ridiculous questions that I'm taking in 15 minutes? Well, I get this assessment back and my mind was blown. I mean, the way I describe it to people today is I felt like somebody had broken into my home and found my journal. Like the good, the bad, the ugly was there. And if I was going to show up authentically, I needed to own those responses. Now, of course, those are only as good as you are honest when you're replying, but I was honest. So they were really spot on. And I had to know more, right? Like I just had to understand this. How did something like this capture me in a nutshell and my weaknesses and my challenges and the things I needed to push through? So I attended a class myself on the DISC. And I remember as I was learning about the other behavioral styles, I just kind of like sat back in my chair. I thought, oh my gosh, people from my prior work life, home life were popping into my head. And I thought, wow, people, this is going to sound really bad, but people are not waking up trying to irritate me. They are just equally committed to their behavioral style as I am to mine. So, as an example, I'll just kind of give you the high level. D's and I's are very fast paced. Okay. I am a high D, high I. S's and C's are slow paced. So, specifically, I remember being on a team in the education world, and there were some SCs that we would meet with as a group, as a department. And I remember being physically uncomfortable in those meetings, and I just would check out or I would get antsy. And I realized when I'm sitting there trying to speed them along or wrap it up or put a little bow on it so that we can just be done, as uncomfortable as I am physically, they are also when I'm taking those actions. And ultimately, if I wanted to move it forward, I needed to step into or kind of lean into their style and meet them where they're at. So, what it really offers is this, we talk about the platinum rule instead of the golden rule. I mean, I was raised to treat people the way I want to be treated, which is great. I mean, I think that was a great parenting tip from my parents, except where that piece doesn't work is if I want things to be delivered in a quick manner and I want to be able to make a decision and execute quickly and I want it to be fun while we're doing things, I want to laugh. I have to understand that that's not what maybe the person across from me needs. So for an example, and I've mentioned this to you before, when I'm working with clients, one of the first things I do is ask them to take the DISC assessment and we understand it together. So the Donna that you're used to talking to is not the Donna necessarily that another client is used to talking to. And one of the sort of challenges that people say is, well, isn't that being fake? And I would say, no, it's not the messaging that I'm changing. It's how I'm delivering the messaging. And ultimately, people are there to grow. I feel we are here to grow and learn and contribute into this world the way we're meant to contribute into this world. And so why not help people get there on the highest level possible? And if that means I don't get to just be naturally me all the time, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah. And I think that is something that people do think is like, hey, I got to change myself in order to please others. And it's not really that. It's just adjusting how you deliver certain things. You can still be completely yourself, but understanding how other people want to be delivered the information definitely goes a long ways with relationships, getting stuff done that you want to get done. All of that really does factor into the DISC profile. And, we just talked about the other day on somebody that we're talking about is what kind of personality style to expect from them and how to deliver the information. And I think that's super important when we're talking about DISC in general. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, 100%. Like, for an example, let's take real estate, right? That's the world that you work in, and I did for a while. An S behavioral style really has a challenge with change. In fact, it's one of their biggest fears is change. And if that's the case, your whole job is about change and transition. Your whole career is that. And so if you're working with an S, it's really important to understand the discomfort that they could be feeling in that moment. And although it's exciting and it's a beautiful home and it's because they're getting married or they had the child, we can easily perceive, why would this be challenging for you? But the truth is that it is, like a D, for an example, their biggest fear, like for me, I don't like to have my time wasted or being taken advantage of. And I know that to a core. Like I understand that to be a very big fear. It's not as if I'm walking around looking for that, but if I see that that could be happening, I immediately notice blocks coming up. So let's talk about that from an S. If their biggest fear is change and they know what they're doing is in fact going to require large amounts of change, the defenses come up. So we have to know and acknowledge and say, meet them where they're at, right? It's not enough for me as a D, because D's, by the way, love change. Be like, what's the big deal? I've moved 6 times in the last 3 years.
Uh-huh.
Not okay. It's not good. You got to understand where people are and how they're feeling. I would even
Yeah.
go so far to say how you're delivering information. Like, I am not a high C, but a high C is somebody who likes details, likes the plan, wants to understand the kind of the how behind what it is that you're discussing. Well, just because I don't think that's important, if I just deliver what I want them to do without the how, and I don't allow that discovery to take place, the dial will not be moved. So
Mhm.
I know all of this, and we're just kind of sharing it with
Yeah.
the audience here, but I can't express enough how important this is. And by the way, for parents, right? Like for parents, this is huge. My kids are 21 and 19 now. I think there's a time where it's inappropriate to look at their disc style. They're still figuring out who they are, but there is a time where you say, oh my gosh, my kid is a high I. They really need to hear recognition. That's a huge thing for them. They need to feel included. And then how do I say what I need to say in a way that they feel that love?
Yeah. No, and I think it's, like I said, super important with any relationship to understand those personality types or behaviorals, because you could be talking to, I don't know, somebody at the grocery store and having that conversation. You'll see characteristics. You don't necessarily have to know exactly what it is, but you can start recognizing those characteristics and communicating with different people in different ways. And I think it does go a long ways. So I think it's super important to understand it and utilize it to the best that you can on that front. So,
Yeah. And Abs, if I may, one more thing that I didn't mention. The other thing that the disc style will share with you when you take that assessment is your natural style, which is what you would think, it's who you are, and then how you're adapting currently. And that's what does your brain think you need to alter or change about who you are in order to be successful in the capacity or the mindset that you took that disc assessment. And what it can reveal is, well, as you can imagine, when you're first new, there is adaptation because we are learning and stretching and growing. But if you're well into a job or a relationship and your adaptation on different letters is more than 20 to 30 points, you're physically in stress, and this can affect your health. So something to look at, how do you align a little bit more closely?
absolutely. No, that's awesome. And that's all part of the coaching that you deliver, is talking about that personality style. But the other thing that can come up is mindset. We talk about mindset all the time. People talk about it. It's kind of I want to say a trend, but people talk about mindset matters, all of that sort of thing. What does mindset to you, when you're talking to, say, somebody brand new, what are you trying to analyze, or what are you trying to figure out with mindset, and who has a good mindset and who doesn't? What differences do you see as far as them being productive or whatever they're trying to accomplish?
That's a really big question. And the first thing that I will say is the danger of what we have going on in our world right now is, yes, mindset matters, but it doesn't mean you have to be happy all the time, right? Like it's really one of the best, healthiest mindsets is to understand how you are feeling, what is going on internally for you, identifying it, processing it, and then choosing to move on. And that can be done, by the way, very, very quickly. But the danger of all these sort of cute catchphrases and these little quotes that are being posted everywhere is it might make somebody feel like if they are overwhelmed or in their mind failing or having a hard time getting up on a particular day, that they have a quote bad mindset. No, you're human. That's what you are.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really important to say. So from my perspective, I don't love words like good and bad because I think that doesn't allow for the nuances. And who am I to decide what's good or bad? I think it's just kind of like what it is. But I think what a healthy mindset is one that takes time for you to understand where you're at and be willing to know where you want to be and to be willing to change and grow and learn so that you can get there.
Yeah. And I think even more so is just being conscious of what your mindset is at the time. Understanding where you, like you said, where you want to be and where your mind is going to try to accomplish whatever you're trying to do. It may be you can't get anything done because of X, Y, and Z, but being conscious of why that's happening, I think, is super important as well. Don't you
Yes.
agree?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And that's why I say know how you're feeling, allow it, identify it, like even giving it a descriptor, like, oh, I'm feeling envious or I'm feeling doubtful. The better the word, the more descriptive the word, the quicker you can kind of release it and say, yeah, that's how I'm feeling. Now what? What do
Yep.
I want to do about
Yeah.
that?
What actions am I going to take now that I understand this is where I'm at,
Yeah,
essentially, right?
100%. And that is how I show up as a mom, as a partner, as a coach, how I show up with myself. I do allow that grace to say, what is it you're feeling? Okay. What do you want to do about that?
Yeah.
What do
Yeah.
you want to do about it? Not what do I think you should do about, but what do you want to do? Because we're shaping our own lives, right? Like I need to be I think we can get wrapped up and waste time in what we perceive other people should be feeling, doing. Let's give people the respect to live the life that they would like to live, but offer them the opportunity. This is where a coach comes in to say, okay, there's a disconnect between where you want to be and how you're feeling. Let's talk about that. And let's talk about action, right?
Yep.
Action. Yeah, actually, movement versus action. There's a big difference. Are we moving or are we acting?
Yep. Kind of like busy work versus things that actually are pushing the needle for whatever goals you may have. Big difference in that
Big
piece of things too.
difference. Yeah.
So, and yeah, this is stuff that we talk about all the time in coaching. Obviously the disc, the mindset, the seeing the blind spots, all of that sort of stuff. Now, if somebody's listening to this and they're like, "Hey, I want to learn more. I want to speak to Donna," where can people find you, or how can they contact you?
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. I do have a website, it's atraguide.com, but my favorite way to reach out to me is just simply email me. It's my name, Donna at atraguide.com. And if you reference Alex or this channel, I will kind of move you up to the top of my line in terms of replying to you, but I'm happy to just talk. Usually that's what I do is we begin with a session where we're just having a conversation about truly where are you, what's going on, and then we both decide if it makes sense to work together. And I should say I do one-on-one coaching, yes, and I love that, but I also do coaching with teams and I do speaking engagements and workshops. So sometimes how I can help isn't always one-on-one.
Yeah.
Sometimes it goes beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. So there you have it. Thank you so much, Donna, for showing up today. It was a great conversation. I hope people really enjoy it. But as for now, we'll see you later.